Mr. Atkinson, you want to take your seat? I think they're having it again today. I'm not sure. We'll see. Let's see. All right. Thank you again, everyone, for being here today for more excitement. And we will continue with our work session, preparing to discussing our budget that the city manager has presented to us. And so I will, at this time, turn it over to our city manager to continue where we left off yesterday.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Welcome. Glad everybody came back. Didn't put anybody to sleep yesterday. So a couple of just quick overview items. Today will be part 2. You can see the list up on the screen there of what we will talk about. I do have a series of additional information, corrections, announcements, that sort of thing that we'll need to do at the very end today. So I think we'll get a good distance into this. As always, stop with any questions that you may have or suggestions. So starting with enterprise, we'll jump right in with water and wastewater. At the fund level, so your combined fund level, you see where we stand here. The revenue is expected to be up slightly in water based on consumption. And in wastewater, we had a little bit of an aggressive budget last year. We don't think we're going to quite hit it, so you've got a little bit of an adjustment to true that back up. Oftentimes when we talk about selling water and we're reminded we've been blessed with a very wet year, typically your highest water use comes after you've had a wet year. Everybody's yards are nice and green. They look good, and now they want to keep it that way. So we do think that will hold. I was asked about a week ago, just out of curiosity, where are we on Lake Allen Henry? Where does it stand? It's 96% full, 96%. So we're doing really good there. All right, a little bit of a change in departmental operations. That's water reconnect fees, where it says reimbursements from other cities. That is related to the capital portion of the cost for the Crimwall cities for whom we treat their Crimwall water and then send farther down the pipe. As we heard yesterday, interest earnings doing well. Our sewer lateral program that we spent quite a bit of time on last year, we're really not putting out the dollars that we thought we would pull out. So we've trued that back down a little bit, and we'll keep an eye on it. We've had a few people use the assistance program. A few have used that pay over 12 program, but it has been surprisingly good, So thank you all for working on that. We're not dipping into reserves at the fund level for water, wastewater either. So we'll move over. That was revenue. Now you see expense. For compensation and benefits, remember we are adding the 4 water meter technicians. That's that final roll-off from LP&L doing all of that work to none. 1 industrial electrician, a little bit of part-time pay. We've had retirements, all the typical things that go on. Our operations and maintenance, so we say this one backwards so it doesn't get confused with M&O property taxes. You see the changes there. The debt service is up a bit. Remember, that was largely the first portion of the West Lubbock Water Expansion Program, or project, and you'll see the second half of it here in just a little while. Transfer to Lubbock Power and Light for utility billing. You heard this yesterday in solid waste, so you'll hear it with water, wastewater, and stormwater as well. And then some of the transfers are a little bit higher based on capital, and then the transfer that goes over to fleet to buy the vehicles is actually going down. We're doing really good on the fleet here. So all in, 162.2 million to 171 million. That's the far left and the far right. Okay, a lot of numbers on here. We'll highlight a few as we go across it. This is what we call the rate model. This captures all of the revenues, the expenses, the debt, the capital, everything gets put into here. The top section is your revenue section. we forecast to end this calendar, or this fiscal year 25, at $168.6 million on revenue, and then projected for next year to $171.1. You come down, then you've got your operations and maintenance cost. This year, 75.3 to 76.5. Come down to the next set, you have your indirect cost, the transfer to LP&L, again, that is the billing cost, and then the transfers to others, that's fleet and capital and those types of things. 12.7 to 13.1. And again, the largest change there is the billing office allocation. The next set, where it says cash capital outlays, we're at the bottom of the page now. So this is pay-as-you-go funding, up from 16.8 to 20.9 in millions. We've digested all those. I'll flip to the second half of the model. Okay. Top sequence on here brings in your debt service, earnings, all that type of things. So where it says interest earnings on bond funds in a negative, so that's actually an earning, it's a revenue. The rest of it's an expense. Current year, 161.8. Your new budget year, 169. And again, the largest of those changes is in the debt service, and that's West Lubbock Water Expansion. So total revenues over or under expenditures, we're coming in right at 2.2 million over. That's down from the prior year. That's not indicative of a problem. We've ramped into a year that we can do quite a bit of cash capital through here. So the financial metrics just underneath that, you've got your debt service coverage. It's a series of calculations. If you're asked what is the debt service for next year, it's 60.1 million. But those two smaller numbers underneath that, these are when we get graded basically by the rating agencies. So our coverage ratio for the new budget will be 1.83. So we have 1.83 times available to cover the debt. And our target to maintain our ratings is 1.75. If we go to try to upgrade this rating, and we've really only got one more step we can go up, that target rate is going to go up. And in our last review, it would go up so much, I just don't know that we want to hold on to that much of people's monies in exchange for what's going to amount to just a couple of basis points. So we'll stay on top of that. Just right now, I don't see us making that run. Okay, the final set on here talks about your reserves. So the policy for this is 25% of revenue. Revenue is on the first page of the model. So carry all these numbers across, take out the reserve fund requirements. What you see is ending this year with 3.8 predicted and ending next year at 5.2. Now this is combined. This is water and wastewater. So we're kind of getting tight, but you can see the model bringing that back up pretty significantly in the future. So we're okay with it. The final line is your base rate. So the base rate for water, the base rate for sewer, as a percentage of debt service. We're at 56%. It's going to come back up. That's a little bit low, but we're not at this point. We do not feel like we're in any jeopardy as it relates to the ratings or to the cash that we'll have on hand. That's a metric used by your rating agencies. Perfect is 1. Sometimes you can get there, most times you can't. Questions on the model?
Are there any questions? All right, could you explain? Mr. Rose first.
Thank you, Mayor. On this new debt service coming on in fiscal year 27, what is that? It goes 2.5 and then ramps up to 6, 12, 16, 22.
The second half of the West Lubbock project.
Okay.
You'll see that in the capital.
Okay, thank you.
So if you issue the debt this year, your payments are in the following.
Right. Okay.
questions? I had one. Just explain the base rate as a percentage of debt service. Explain that a little bit better to me.
So the water and wastewater both, your bill is two components. You have your base rate, that's the fixed fee. And then you have your consumption, how many thousands of gallons of water and how much, in your wastewater. It's a common metric in enterprise utility. So you'll see these same analyses are done inside of natural gas, electric, all different types of deals. A perfect world, and this is not Jarrett, this is your rating groups, will tell you that your base rate should cover all of your debt service. Okay. So what we're saying here is the combination of all of your base rate revenue is the equivalent of 56% of debt service. Now, we don't have increases. We're not asking for increased fees in either of these two. So if you back up last year, we were at 96%. This year, we're down to 56, and you see us starting to climb back up.
And what are the other sources that we use to cover the debt service then, other than the base rate?
We cover debt service with all sources of revenue, so that's going to be your base rate, your volume rate, in today's world, interest earnings, and then there's a bunch of miscellaneous revenue that comes in. We make all of that available for debt. So go back up to where you have coverage ratio and coverage target. You see that our combined available revenue is 1.83 times what our debt service is. Now, obviously, that doesn't count expenses and all that, because this is what the people that sell you the bonds want to look at.
All right. Any other questions?
This fund is still strong.
Okay.
It's strong. That base is a percent. We'll start to climb back up, and we'll be pretty good.
All right.
Those are good questions because the same stuff applies when we keep moving. Okay, so here is your rate model. The easiest one to look at is to come across the top. That's your volume charges. We'll just 0 to 1,000 has nothing in it. That's because you get the first 1,000 gallons included in your base. The next category is 1,000 to 5,000. You see that we've been at $4.10. We're still at $4.10. Model today, unless there's other changes, we'll be able to stay at $4.10 next year. What is likely to change your volume charges? It's mainly going to be chemicals and power and things like that that affect treatment, because the more of that we do, the more it costs. Go down to your base rate. Use the 3/4 inch meter. You can use any of them. We'll just take that top line. The current base rate is $18.75. That includes the first 1,000 gallons. We've now been flat for the 2 years in a row. The model does have $1 in the following year. And all this will get recalculated before your next budget to see if that's needed or not. But that's where it stands. For today's purposes, for your budget's purpose, no change. If you go down to the next, you've got wastewater. And you have both a volume rate there and you have a base rate there. Right now, that model is flat all the way across the page. As we start getting closer and closer to Lake 7, I think you're going to see that change because we've got to do the very last part of the stream quality upgrades. But right now, it's showing pretty flat. Questions there? All right, capital. So this is on the water side. Let me back that out just a little. Putting in another $1 million as we continue to work on getting the 404 or the United States Corps of Engineers permit. Adding $1 million to that. That is some new cash. And where it says other, that's existing cash that we've closed out of some other project. Locate and repair water valves. That's an essential part of keeping your system running. We try to keep dollars in that account to do that. We've had pretty good luck the last couple of years, so we're needing to add only 600. Normally that'll be 750 to 1 million. Move down to the large valve project. Same basis, same part of keeping your system running. These are just much, much more expensive per valve. So $1.5 million there, again, all in cash. New meter sets and meter replacements. This is primarily new sets, and then it's replacing meters that have basically aged out or been damaged. So $2.535 million, again in cash. North Terminal Storage Reservoir improvements. That is one of the two big terminal storage reservoirs that's out by the airport. It's the city side one. Remember, that was built in the early 1960s. It needs some care and feeding as we continue to go along. We thought we were going to have to dredge that. We were able to do some other work that showed us no, but there's still valves and piping and things like that to keep up with. Again, all in cash. Continuing over, here is the second half of the West Lubbock Water System expansion. Estimated today at 36.4. That's a little higher than what we expected a year ago. When it says bonds, remember these are all revenue bonds. They are not on your tax levy. They are not general governmental debt. And then finally, pumping system improvements, phase 3 at 500, also cash. So all but West Lubbock expansion will be cash.
Are there any questions? When it says funding to date, Mr. Atkinson, how do you determine the funding to date? I mean, for each of these projects, is there there's a beginning date for them? And this is the money we've put into those projects over time. It's not a balance in any account or anything like that.
No, it is
Simple.
uniquely assigned to a particular project that this council has approved.
So these are all ongoing projects.
They're all ongoing, and I'll give you a couple of examples. West Lubbock Water expansion, we had a very small amount 2 years ago, and that was to get the preliminary engineering. We paid cash. We had the big money in last year, this current year's budget, and then you've got the new money. That project will close when the project is finished. So it has we know when we start and we know when we finish. If you go back a page and you look at these maintenance accounts, like locate and repair water valves, large valve projects, those are ongoing accounts. We will typically, though, close them and restart them between the third and the fourth year, just depending on what it is.
Okay, that's kind of my question. Some of these seem like they're ongoing without a stop.
Some of them are 4-digit numbers and some of them are 5-digit. That's what you're seeing us do.
But you kind of set a period of time on them, and then you start a new one. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we've got the last page of that, water line replacements. That's also your ongoing. That's how we take care of really old lines or undersized residential lines, that sort of thing. Notice that project number is it's a larger number, 2025-007. We close the old one, we open a new one, we put the money back in the new one. Same thing with water lines ahead of street paving. We've talked about that pretty much every budget. Fire hydrant repair and replacement, also ongoing. System and supply maintenance, and then the 2nd and 3rd Street water line that allows us to ultimately decommission the old pump station number 3, $1.5 million. Those are all cash. So all in, it's $48.9 million spend, and 36.4 is out of that one West Lubbock project and is revenue debt.
So it looks like, am I correct, that you've started a new numbering system to kind of indicate what year the project is started in? It looks like.
We did that 2 years ago, but yeah.
That's helpful. Thank you.
It helps us a bunch. Otherwise, I'm constantly having to ask Joe, what does that mean? Okay, we'll move into wastewater capital. Sanitary sewer adjustments, that you've got the date in it, 23-24. Had 80,000 a year ago, we're adding another 90 to it. It's something you do constantly, and this is how we try to keep your manhole lids level with where your pavement is. So it's mainly where we're doing new street work or new mill and relays. Sewer ahead of Broadway, so that's part of what we're going to be doing next summer for the bond project. 209,000 in existing cash, 791,000 that came out of us closing old projects and making the money available. Sewer ahead of street paving at 450. Some work out at the water reclamation plant. That project started in FY23, adding 1.3. It's also cash. Lift station rehabilitation, $350, cash. Northwest Lubbock sanitary sewer expansion, $950. This is one of your big interceptors, cash. And then just general electrical improvements. This is mainly at the plants and the lift stations, $700. We will keep spending money for that because the various NEC, National Electric Code standards change, and we have to upgrade equipment to stay current. Okay. We need to replace one aged-out pivot on one of the two farms. The SCADA improvements are twofold. The current system is hard to support, and second, we are moving to a SCADA that is much more secure in a cyber sense. Various inflow and outflow meters, measuring the flows and the volumes. Major line condition assessment and repair. Manholes on the big interceptor lines. General sewer line and sewer tap replacements. Of course, sewer tap replacements, that is the lateral line program. And then just general maintenance. So what you're going to see here, 58.375, I'm sorry, 9.4 in wastewater, and it's all new cash or existing cash that came out of old projects. Between the two, it's 58.3, and again, you've got this 36.4 for the second half of West Lubbock.
And just remind us what the SCADA is. It's the means by which we control the valves, or
stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. Simple-minded people such as myself, it's the remote control.
Yeah, the remote control for our system. Yeah, okay.
I know there's some true SCADA professionals sitting out there watching us, but they've heard me call it a remote control before. Okay, so we're over to water now. These are not your water bill. These are unique and specific fees. So for water disconnects and reconnects, if you got regular hours, you have after hours or holidays, we're asking for $5 on that. And then the meter set fees, we actually have in the budget ordinance every year that these will readjust to meet actual costs, so it updates for, material and labor and so forth. And you see what those changes are year over year. Again, if you're not getting a new meter set, you're not paying any of this. And then the last, we have a very, very fancy, very capable lab, and we do sample work for a lot of other cities, for private parties. We need to up that. You'll remember in this budget year, we just bought that giant chromatograph thing that I can't even pronounce, but those costs are up just a bit.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Just to confirm, the reconnect and disconnect fee, that is for the public, for any?
Yes, that is somebody that for an extended period of time did not pay their bill and we had to turn the water off.
And then the water meter set fees would be a new development, a home, business?
Largely, yes.
And then just to confirm, the microbiology lab service fee would be for customers utilizing our services?
Outside parties.
Okay. That's all.
Okay, we ready for Lubbock Power and Light? We'll have Mr. Harvey Hall, CFO. And Harvey, if you'll point at me or something, I'll advance your slides for you.
Okay, all right, will do. So thank you very much. It's the mission of Lubbock Power and Light to deliver safe, reliable energy on a consistent basis, to be able to do that in a cost-effective way, to maintain financial strength and health of the utility itself, to preserve customer assets, and also engage our customers in an ongoing way to ensure excellent customer service. So what you'll see before you is bing. Do you ever remember in like school when they would flip to the next slide, you hear the bing, and it would just flick to the next thing? So I'll be as bang.
You go to school here.
I know, I just did. Thank you very much. I'm actually 29, but I'd like to show here that. So what we have here is our expense summary. we're going from about a $5.8 million drop in our expenses from $185 million in the prior year to just over $179 million in the current proposed budget year. The main drivers for this, I'll just walk across the aisle here on these. This is on the revenue side. So revenue went down. So for work orders, we had a decrease in our work orders here because prior year we had cost recovery from Hurricane Milton. We had sent and we've done this a couple times, we've sent crews to Florida during storm events. Part of that was cost recovery for work orders related to that we were recovering FEMA money from that we received last year. And then also we had some streetlight orders, some fairly large developments that we covered last year. So that was in the prior year. We don't anticipate that this year, so about $800,000 delta there. For distribution revenue, we have a decrease proposed from last year to this year of just about $2.4 million. That's related to what we anticipate is going to be a rate decrease. We're still looking at that. We've just received our rates, and we're going through those. It's going to be if there is a rate decrease, it'll be a fairly small one on the order of maybe 1.5%. It'll be fairly small, but we do increase that. We do anticipate that we'll be available to do that. Our fees and charges, we look for those to increase as we continue the collection of disconnect and reconnect fees for meters. And also we have for our FFE, our franchise fee equivalent, that's the 5% that we give to the city, or what we anticipate is going to be like the 5% now. We do anticipate that to go up slightly with an increase in our load, because right now we look at that, we have a rate that we apply to our load. As load goes up, that means there's more franchise fee revenue available for the city that we would give to the city. And it's going to be rather small. We have our load increases by about 0.5% a year, so there's not any big changes in there. So that's everything that we have that's known and foreseeable that we would see during the current year. Our TCOS, which is our transmission cost of service revenue, that's for all of our transmission assets that sit outside the city. That was part of the over $300 million worth of transmission assets that we built to connect with ERCOT to get us into ERCOT and into retail competition. Effectively, the TCOS revenues is really a toll booth. So as other energy companies move their energy across our system, it's managed by ERCOT. We receive a fee for that. We had budgeted last year for that to be about $38.5 million. We look at that to be a little over $43 million this coming year, or actually $44.4 million that we're budgeting for this year. We got a favorable ruling from the Public Utility Commission last year that's basically enabled us to. We thought we were going to get a rate. We thought we were going to get a cut. They actually gave us an increase that we asked for. So that was a favorable judgment on our side. So that's more money. The important piece to that is that means that for those assets that sit outside the city and the debt associated with it and the debt service associated with it, the citizens of Lubbock are not paying for that. It's everybody outside the city of Lubbock that pays for those assets. So that's a benefit that we have for the city, that we have control of our system, and we also have assets that are being paid for outside the city. So that burden's being carried not by the citizens of Lubbock on that part of it. For our interest rates continue to remain fairly high. The Fed obviously is not backing off of interest rates, so interest rates applied to our earnings our reserve continue to remain robust. During the year, we used a little over $19 million in reserves from last year. We're going to use $12 million, just about almost $12.7 million less this year. We had some major projects we were looking to get done last year. Our goal has been to, as we have funds available, to use cash to fund those. And we've maintained that. We continue on that path, and so that helps us to not have to continue to incur additional debt. That gets us to our $179,235 on the revenue. On the expense side, we have an increase in our compensation and benefits, about $1.6 million. That includes the addition of, we have one FTE, it's an electrical engineer 1 that we've added. We made an assumption on what a COLA would be. At the time when we made the estimation, CPI was sitting about 3%. We just used that as a plug until we knew where we were eventually going to land. So that's what we have in there. For professional services and training, we had a NERC. NERC required testing of all of our substation transformers for their oil testing. It's a reliability testing to make sure they're operating properly. We had a one-time expense of that that we will not incur this year, and we had some other expenses related to that.
Hey, Harvey, I'm not going to let you get away with calling it a NERC.
It's National Electric Reliability Corporation.
Thank you.
That's the arm of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC, that basically manages the safety and reliability of electric utilities and the transfer of energy. So sorry about that. I just threw a NERC FERC thing. So I know exactly. No, excellent question. Our City of Lubbock utility reimbursement is increased $1.7 million to the city. That's the services that we provide for the billing and the collection of revenue for water, wastewater, stormwater,
Solid waste.
and solid waste. But solid waste is that's true. We still do that. That's true. I almost kind of went and said that's not a, but it is. You're correct. So that actually went up. Part of that is the cost associated with our Oracle system. So we're doing some beefing up in our Oracle system, some other things too. Other maintenance and operation, we had some sundry costs there that we put in there for tree trimming. Tree trimming's up a little bit. Vegetation management's a very critical aspect of maintaining reliability in a utility. That's one of the number one causes to have system outages, is if you don't maintain your vegetation. We've seen, obviously, from CenterPoint what can happen if you don't. So there can be issues of that. So we maintain that. That's part of our system reliability that we maintain. Also, for debt service has dropped $8.4 million. A large chunk of that was we made a prepayment on our 2015 revenue bond, and that was a $7.2 million issuance that we had was on its 10-year callable period. We went ahead and extinguished that. That was a very good financial move for us. The coupon rates for that we owed on interest were at a straight 5% for the next 10 years. And we're only earning about 4.3% or so in our reserves. It makes sense that when we have that available, two things: it saves us interest, and the other part is it also frees up cash flow for future years. And then the other part too is it also increases our credit worthiness. And last year we got from all three agencies, we got a rating increase from Fitch, from Standard & Poor's, and Moody's. And so we're now up into AA territory for the first time in almost 12 years. So we're doing very well there as well. FFE, so our franchise fee equivalent, that expense goes up $131,000, just as it corresponds on the other side with the increase in the revenue. We include that in our rates that we collect. Our pilot, our payment in lieu of tax, is going up $46,000. And again, that's a function of what we're anticipating at this point, and is just a small change in our assets to cover ad valorem tax. Our capital improvement plan expense is going up $5 million, just about $5.2 million, and that is what we cash fund, or we're using to cash fund our capital. So we're looking to increase that. We've got a number of projects that are on tap for this year. And some major projects, so we continue to work with that. We'll show you that in a little more detail, at least across where we're headed with our capital on the next page. Not yet. And then on transfers, we have a decrease of, we've got a decrease in $2.4 million there as well. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So this will show you a little bit high level, everything that we've really talked about here. I think some highlight points of this is if we go down to, so you can see where the interest run is. So on our revenue, you can see where our funding sources are going. You can see our interest rates, our interest earnings are going up. We have our rentals and recoveries. That's a big chunk of that has to do with the fee that we charge other communication companies to attach their equipment to our poles, or to the city of Lubbock's poles. We also have there's our distribution revenue system, so that is our delivery rate that we charge our customers. It's intended to cover that $129.5 million plus the franchise fee equivalent of $13.2 million. Together, that's just a little over $142 million. That's what we collect in our rates. And as we go down, I think an important thing is we have our ERCOT hold harmless credit. Part of the cost of us going into ERCOT was the agreement of a 5-year period of $110 million that we would provide a benefit to the transmission owners of ERCOT. We divided that by 5, so it's a $22 million a year credit that we started back in 2022. In January of 22, we're going to carry that through. That ends in February of 2027. And that means that's effectively $22 million a year starting in February of 27 that we can keep now for the benefit of our ratepayers. And you can see that down there, probably it's about halfway down on the funding sources. You'll see that line go from 22 million, 7.3, and then it stops. To go down below, I'll go down to the use of general reserve. Again, there's where you see the significant drop of over $12 million that we used a little over $19.1 million in the current year. For projects, we'll use about $6.4 million this year, another $7 million next year, and $3.3 the year after. And then at that point, we are sufficient to be able to stop dipping into that. The biggest contributor to that is the fact that we'll have the hold harmless that will have fallen off at that point. Down to departmental expenses, you'll see that year over year, they remain fairly constant. They actually go down somewhat from 90.8, 90.9 during the current year down to about 90.4. They go slightly less, and they remain fairly stable. On the next slide, the fund level expenses. Our debt service remains actually drops in the current budget year. That's a reflection of the 2015 revenue bond that we extinguished. And you'll see the drop in payments there. That actually represents cash flow that has been freed up. The next year, you'll see it go up, and that is in relation to what we will be proposing is the building of participating in a project to build a west side transmission loop, and that will be in partnership with another utility, we believe. And that project, we would be needing to take out a borrowing of that. We estimate that borrowing to be somewhere near $120 million. That would be T-cost related. So the burden, the cost, the debt service of that would go into our transmission cost of service. We'll look to have a full filing of that when that's completed in 2028. And then that will in turn get carried into our T-cost revenue line, which is about 44.4 right now. That will increase that, what we believe could be, if all goes well with the PUC, another $7 million. And then that's what goes to, in turn, pay that debt service. So the important point there is that transaction and that debt does not increase our rates. That stays on the transmission cost of service side. And then finally, we have on the debt service up above, the third line down, debt service early retirement. We have projected out 3 years, actually 3 years out from today, or 2 years beyond the budget period, to look at extinguishing the 2014 and 2016 revenue bonds. We'll look at that, and that's going to be considered in the future. And then I'll get to the last line, our revenue, basically our reserve position. At the end of this fiscal year, we anticipate to be at about $26 million over our minimum requirement. That's 90 days cash is what that reflects. We're sitting right about, as we speak, we're sitting just a little over 170 days right now, so we're doing fairly well on cash. Net, at the end of our proposed budget year, will be just about 21.2, 21.3, then down to 10 million, then down to 5.4 million at the lowest point, and then we start to build that reserve back up when hold harmless falls off, and you can see that going up to 18, and then out in the future years. So with that, I will stop and refer to the City Council for any questions.
All right, are there any questions? So Harvey, on the hold harmless, that drops off, you said, in February of next year, is that right?
February of 27.
27, okay, all right. Mayor Pro Tem.
You mentioned the increase in the cost to tree trimming.
Correct.
Is that in partnership with Parks and Rec? Is that doing some work with them or just?
No, that's work for around our substations and into our wires and on our poles. So as trees and vegetation grows up next to our infrastructure, whether it's a substation or whether it's the poles and lines, we need to maintain a buffer of that so that in the event of a windstorm or anything like that, that's where you get a common outage is when a limb or something collapses on a line, crosses a phase, a short circuit, and then power goes out.
Okay.
So that's to maintain the assurance that we keep that safe.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you, Harvey.
Great, thank you.
Okay, council, we'll pick back up with stormwater. So stormwater revenue summary, 25.7 for the current year to 23.6 in the new year. So the revenue is decreasing, and that is just based on updated current year projections of where that's going. So no change in the rate. Some of this is not quite as much growth as what we anticipated when we built the budget last year. Interest earnings are going down, not because of the interest rate, but because we're using cash on hand. Excess reserve use for the new year has gone down slightly because we were able to do quite a bit of work in the current year. So that's revenue side. Move over to the expense side. All in 25.7 down to the 21.0. So we're having comp and benefit decreases. We do have some increases because of CERT pay, TMRS, et cetera, everything we talked about yesterday. On maintenance and operations, this is a transfer back to engineering, and this is more of your city engineer and his team doing work in-house. This is an enterprise fund. They get charged for that. Same with their IT charge. We are continuing to see debt roll off here. The pilot fees are going up just very slightly. That's just the values of the fixed assets. That's how that is assessed. The increase coming from the business office at LP&L, and then other transfers is down in nearly $5 million. So revenue versus expense, here is the model. It will be pretty similar to what we looked at a moment ago. So the first column with the numbers is your current year, and then your proposed year. You see that same change in revenue from 23.8 down to 23.6. And again, that's your general metered revenue, slight decrease in interest. Come on down through your expenditures, same things here. Year over year totals, that's 25.7 million. Now the new year, 21.0. And leaving us with 2.5 million of revenue over expenditures, which falls down to the bottom of the page, which is where we look at the reserves. This one also requires 20% of your operating costs to be held in reserves. We ended last year, or we predict to end the year at 4.99, basically 5 million, bringing that back up to 7.5, and then you can see how it predicts over the years. Again, I think more importantly on the rates, no changes to the rates here.
Any questions? Jared, I noticed that the pay-as-you-go funding into the capital improvements goes from 4.4 down to 9,000 and then back up again. Can you explain that?
Yeah, we're building back up to a lot of cash in hand to be able to do that in the following year. We don't have as much need this year, but we know what's coming.
Okay. All right. All right.
All right, the capital program for the year, $325,000 for watershed boundary and drainage studies. This is ongoing. It will always be a function as long as either A, we're making drainage improvements that allows properties to come out of the floodplains, or B, to be able to accommodate growth and manage the water. Upland and 66th Street Playa drainage improvements, that is a project that is currently under construction. So the majority was funded over the last 2 years. We need just a little bit more to come in and finish that one out. We've run into lots of things in our easements that were not supposed to be in our easements that we're working through. I believe this is District 5. Oh, sorry. Anyway, stormwater system improvements. Your general ongoing here, $625,000. Stormwater system rehabilitation and maintenance, also ongoing. Drainage improvement for arterial projects, that is funding available that we have as we work on these major projects for the drainage piece of it. You'll notice that all but the little bit of the storm drainage on Broadway, all of it is in the other category as far as your source of funding. Those are all prior projects that we're closing out and basically recapturing what's left within them. So no new associated debt on this one. Okay, let's go to Lake Allen Henry, and again, nearly 96% full. Blow that up just a little. So revenue is increasing out here because of entrance and camping fees and annual permits. I don't know who's had a chance to get out to the lake during the summer months, but it is very, very well utilized. Compensation and benefits going down slightly, largely due to terminal pay that was offset by the increase in health premiums and dental. A little bit on the vehicles for maintenance. Professional services is down. We no longer have the interlocal contract with Garza County. That was largely at their request. Scheduled charges are down due to electricity and property insurance. So fun fact, Lake Allen Henry's always been an ERCOT. Lake Allen Henry's always been an ERCOT. Totally different from anything we do up here. The fund level expenses are going up because of transfer to fleet. We've got several vehicles that we need to replace out there. If you come across and look at that, you've got $772,000 in revenue for the new budget. This one's on the far right-hand side versus $821 prior year, and then come down, same numbers that balance out on your expenses. We are requesting one fee. This is a new fee. Prior year, you gave us the dollars to build a dump station for RVs. We're going to have that finished here pretty quick. We need to get a nominal fee back for the use of that. So the 5 to 15 is based on the size of the rig that's using it. Go to airport. So on the revenue side, all in for the current year, $20.3 million. Up to $21.2 million for the following year. The hangar rentals go up every year, and in fact, every lease at the airport, and there are a large number of them, are on a schedule that changes year over year. So we're not asking for something new or different. It's already in those documents. Parking revenues seem to be, again, going up. We're pretty pleased with that. The PFC, which is passenger facility charge, and the CFC, which is the customer facility charge. Those are going up a little bit based on the annual debt service. Miscellaneous revenue went down a little bit on interest earnings, but we also spent some cash capital over the last year there. So this is the revenue side. Go to the expense side, 18.4 up to 21.2. You've got a little bit of a change in your compensation and benefits. We're able to take maintenance and operations down. We bought a new street sweeper dedicated to the airport and some other equipment that we don't have to buy again this year. Again, you've got an increase in your debt service, and then our transfer to ARF, which is Airport Rescue Firefighting. We talked about it yesterday with the PFAS project. So ARF is up, as well as the transfer to capital being up. And we'll go into those details. So here starts your fund model. You see the new budget year on the left with the blue boxes. Total funding sources, again, 21.2. Carry your department expenses down for 10.7. And then you've got your net debt service, the vehicle and equipment debt, indirect, airport rescue and firefighting, capital transfer of 3.672. All in, your total expenses at 21,251. Very bottom of the page are your reserve calculations. So we'll start the year with 24.8 million. Take away 4.2 million as the required reserve, leaving available 20.5. So remember, the airport exists, and they don't show up on here, but you exist in a unique environment where there are certain grants that come to the airport on a formula basis, called the entitlement grants. You have some that Kelly and her team have been very successful in getting that are called discretionary grants. Largely, that's when some other airport can't spend the grant money they were given. Kelly and her team is always ready to step in and say, give it to us. You have two other sources in the airport. Airport has its own version of ARPA. It is not related to what we've been doing through the council. It's dedicated to the airport. They also have received funding through the BIL or the bill or the bipartisan infrastructure law, whatever we're calling it today. So a lot more that goes to it. What you're seeing on these slides has been the earned income. So for capital, pavement maintenance phase 2, $200,000 in cash. Ongoing project that will live forever. Property improvements phase 2, $400,000 in cash. Improvements to the freight road. There we go. Freight road and parking improvements, $500,000. Perimeter road, $885,000. If you've never had a chance to take a drive around the perimeter road while you're riding with one of the airport people, you'll be shocked at how far it is around the airport. And yes, people do get in there and try to do it improperly. Rental car facility improvements at $200,000. I believe that's working on the roof of that structure. Moving over, we need to get in line for the next new ARF truck, $1 million, cash. Snow removal equipment at $750,000 in cash. Passenger boarding bridge, these will either be replaced or refurbished, likely replaced. The $675,000 in cash, that is your match. The 12.8 is the grants that come on it in there. Some heavy equipment replacement, some equipment and vehicle replacement, all in $17.7 million in capital, 4.8, nearly 4.9 in cash, 12.8 through the grants.
Dr. Wilson.
Any plan to expand parking at our airport? I mean, not within, obviously not within this year, but just long-term. I think that's the biggest complaint that I see from airport is every time people are going out there, the parking garage is full, the flat, surface lot is full on long-term.
We've actually had some conversations with an outside party over potentially, not garage, but covers, and making that work. Expanding it beyond the footprint that it's at to get net new spaces, we're going to have to go up. And that's going to be several years out because it's the question of, and we have a spot, we've reserved a footprint that you could build a new garage and then when you're done, come and take the old one down. Or rather leave that as open, shorter term parking, take the garage out, be without it for a bit of time and then put a bigger garage up. They're all on the deck. They're not in the next probably 3 years. And then we still do have Shelter Park, and the utilization down there has gone up.
Mr. Rose.
Yeah, I just had a praise for Kelly and her team. The airport, it looks phenomenal. It's running, I mean, amazingly smooth. It's nice to have, I have business people come in and they tell me how great our airport is, how clean it is, and how well it operates. So y'all keep up the good work.
Thank you. Okay, fee changes. And again, this is what we talked about up front. These are built in to your various leases and so forth. What you see on the right, that's the actual change per square foot per month on those. Carries over, there's quite a few of them. You do see on the bottom of this page, you start getting into the rental car parking. This is a charge to the rental car agencies for parking on our part of it. And then you see the landing fee changes that are proposed on the last two lines. And that'll close out airport. Okay, we're into city bus. So outlined in the blue on the right-hand side, you see the proposed budget. Immediately to the left of it, of course, is the current budget. Total operating revenues this year, 9.465. New year, 9.45. Something to kind of keep in mind as grants begin to wind out over the future, not next year, but later out years, as those wind down, you're going to be looking at increased transfer from the general fund. That's what city transfer is. Or some kind of a modification in service or a combination of both. We're not there yet, but it is coming. Chris Mandrell and his team have used a lot of these dollars that came running in to tremendous advantage. They've dramatically lowered the age of the fleet. They've done a lot of good things. They started the micro version. Just know that that's going to come in and change. So you have the 9.45 in your operating revenues. You come into the next set, and those are your various grants, your prior year grant carryovers, things of that nature. Total of 19.7. And then you go down to the expense line item and come out at the same number, 19.69. Questions on city bus?
On the, and I noticed this, there's going from fund to fund and different things, there's a lot of discrepancies or differences in the professional services and training. I noticed where that goes up like a couple $100,000. Is there any explanation for that?
On this particular budget?
Yes.
Okay, so professional services and training current year is 1.436 million. Next year is 1.622 million. I believe a big part of that change is the various softwares that they use, mainly for dispatching the micro transit and stuff like that. But I would bet either Bill or Chris or Michael. Michael's here.
Yes.
I should have said nice things about Michael instead of Chris.
No problem. Yes, he was correct. Most of that, the professional and service and training went up. And part of that's the increase for city IT charges that we get. You've seen that across everybody else. Our costs went up for city IT charges. The other part is from our technologies that we've put into place, Swiftly and Spare, those kind of things. And then also we had a contract for our shelter maintenance that went up about $20,000. But that's what makes up the difference there in the professional and technical.
All right. Thank you.
And so, fun fact, no city bus employees are City of Lubbock employees. So you actually have a third party that runs that. You provide a payment to them in exchange. They make all that happen. Okay, some fee changes are proposed and some elimination of fees are proposed. So paratransit for $2. And then on a farther basis, paratransit 5, and on the longest runs, 10. Premium locations, you see that. Changes, or not changes, but actually creating the on-demand fees. And then the elimination of the 4 at the bottom of the page. So what Michael and Chris and team are doing, they know where the big demand is right now, and it's the on-demand and the paratransit, and they're trying to just help us cover the cost. You'll never get there with fee boxes, but you can do what you can to offset it. We'll go to the cemetery. Okay, you do see some changes here. We have a decrease in our lot and our mausoleum sales. We are having to up the general fund transfer to help balance this budget, and then pulling down a little bit on using our available reserves. So 893 on the revenue side, 893,000 to 1.4 million. Go over to the expense side, you see largely the same. Our compensation and benefits is going down a bit. Maintenance and operations is up. Mainly that is the mowing contract. Cemetery looks better than I think it has looked in years. When we get that irrigation project finished, it's going to be even better. But because of the irrigation project, you do have the debt service payment that we've not had prior. They are also replacing a couple of vehicles. So here is your capital program. The last line, that 92889, the $2 million, that's what you did a year ago. You also had previously funded perimeter fencing. Now we're asking just for $30,000 in cash money to just keep up with the general care and feeding of a cemetery that is actually older than the city is. The cemetery was created many years before Lubbock existed. Civic Center. Okay, overall, you're going to see a reduction here, and it's really from the utilization of reserves, but 4.3 million down to 3.9 on the revenue side. Lisa and her team do expect events to increase, but most other sources to remain flat. They've also had a very slight decrease in interest earnings, not because of the rate, because of using their dollars. We have increased the hot transfer a bit, and then no cash funded capital for the new year, but I'll show you why we're setting it up that way. So the expense summary, same thing. Compensation and benefits is just a very slight move. Maintenance and operation is largely due to IT, insurance, pest control, and then again, we're down on the capital projects, the cash funded capital. So here's the capital budget, and these are all prior year fundings, and some of these we're holding them, we're just not doing them at the moment, so the dollars remain available if needed. The project that did go through was the amphitheater erosion repairs. That's coming from that parking lot, going back down to where the amphitheater is. The maintenance fund and the equipment fund, some gets spent out of that, but we're trying to hold on to as much of it as we can as we talk about potential changes and improvements at the Civic Center. We are asking for some changes here. The major change over to go from a various rate, and I believe Lisa's here and can explain that, to 1/2 times whatever the base rent is. That's that major getting people in and their events and getting people out. Storage closets have become hot real estate at the Civic Center. Yes, sir. Storage closets. As you might imagine, there's a limited number of them. Therefore, they should probably not be free to outside parties. We're asking to be able to charge for the use of our storage closets. And then finally, the facility improvement fee. That's been $1 a ticket since we implemented it a number of years ago. We'd like to add one quarter or 25 cents to that.
And so that facility improvement fee, where does that money go? Into a fund?
Back into revenue.
Okay, back into just revenue. Okay. Any questions?
And Mayor, I don't mean to interrupt, but something I should have said at the start. Your civic center has no general fund or tax dollars in it.
Right.
It stands on its own. You cover its loss through its hot revenue. And you use hot primarily also to do capital. So, well run.
And it looks good.
It does.
Looks good.
It's getting close to having a milestone birthday, but yeah, it looks good.
It is.
Okay, Meadowbrook. And council's well aware of some pretty significant, and to this date and time, very positive changes that have been made at the golf course. So this runs through a third party. You've got only 2 budget years. That's all we've had under this arrangement. We're going to collect a small amount of interest on cash on hand. Memberships, you see green fees going up. This course has actually set some records within its own network for how much it's being utilized. Pro shop sales, cart fees going up a little bit. Range sales flat. We are making some improvements at that range. It needs it. The total revenue sources come up to 2.8 million, up from 2.6 million. And then you see down below a little bit of an increase in supplies, decrease in maintenance because so much got done this year. Up on professional services and training, same with other is down. And then an increase in the scheduled charges that we put to the course. So revenue budget of 2.85 compared to an expense budget of 2.79. The difference will help you build the available reserves. You had a project funded in this current year at $107,000 to make improvements out there. We're not asking to fund that again. They've got that work done. So. We're going to move into internal service. Mayor, I don't know when you wanted to take our break, but.
Now's a good time. All right, we'll take a 10-minute break. All right, let's move on.
Okay, thank you. We'll jump now onto the internal service funds. Start with fleet. Maybe as a quick reminder, internal service funds exist to provide services to other city operations, so their customers are all internal. Fleet, of course, is one of the largest of those. If you look on, blow that up just a little bit. If you look at the department level expenses, current year 13.9, proposed budget is 14.2. We've got a bit of an increase in benefits, largely due to TMRS, health, and dental. The maintenance and operation increase is the vehicle maintenance, which is a large part of why they're there. Capital outlay, we've taken, last year we purchased a large air compressor. We don't need it again, so that money comes back out. Your vehicle and equipment debt is going up, and that's tax notes for solid waste and Lubbock Fire Rescue. Remember that those departments are charged for that, so you see it in their budgets, and then it comes over here. Transfer to capital is going down. We don't have as many cash capital projects this year. Oh, sorry. Questions on fleet before we go to benefit? Okay. Benefits, compensation is up here. This is due to some staffing changes and reallocation of those costs. You saw the negative that's associated with the positive in the human resources budget. So from general fund back over here. Same comment on benefits. We really need some help here. Supplies increasing due to budget for immunization supplies. The professional services increase is almost entirely for the employee assistance program that we provide. We have had a little bit higher medical and prescription claims, and then there's different credits that have come back and forth. And you see the bottom line change on that. So benefits, expenditures from 46.1, your health plan, all that stuff is inside of here, down to 47.1, or up to 47.1. Questions on benefits? Go to information technologies. Current budget on expenditures by categories is 13.7. New budget is 14.8. Big part of that is in compensation changes and the benefits changes associated with. The maintenance is your largest single line item change, and that's various equipment, software, maintenance. Tax note debt is decreased. That is not because that tax note debt has paid off. It's because it's been moved over into the radio shop where it more appropriately belongs. So at the bottom line, current year total expenses, 15 million. New budget, 15.9. So as we've been in all these other budgets and we talk about scheduled charges going up for IT, this is where that comes from. Okay. GIS and data services, pretty flat on this one. Scheduled charges did go down a little bit. Benefits did go up a little bit. So bottom line total for this, $938,000 in the current year. With the compensation adjustment that's been proposed, they would go to $955,000. Y'all have all seen a lot of their products. They're hanging on the walls up on the 11th floor. And I'll tell you what, if you need something from this group, they're fast and they're good. They really, a lot of power in that group to help us show things. Okay, telecommunications. That top line, or that top comment about communications maintenance going up because of the cost of the interactive voice response system, that is actually a telephone software that's used by LP&L in the utility customer service office. It does ultimately get charged back to LP&L, but here you can see the expense of it. We do have a decrease in capital because we were able to replace quite a bit of the background part of the phone systems. Year-over-year change is 1.718 million to 1.749 million. Okay, radio shop, slight compensation decrease. That's just due to how the staffing is laid out. There's a small benefits increase. We are not doing a transfer to the CIP for the new year. Remember though, for the new year, we are going to do a major radio system upgrade across the whole city. And then transfer to fleet, they are replacing a vehicle that they have. So current year 2.18, new year 1.77. Okay, here is your investment pool. This is where all those interest earnings that you've been seeing are generated. We have one staff member that is largely charged to this and a piece of another. But the benefits cost is up, the compensation without the adjustment. The compensation is very flat. Supplies are down, professional services are up, and that's the charges that we get from our bank, and then scheduled charges back to the famous IT department. Current year, 208, nearly 209,000. New year, 220,000. Print shop had a very slight decrease in compensation. That's just based on a new employee. So your benefits cost, the professional services are up slightly, and that is due to our third-party mail service. The one-time expense that we had for our new software to allow them to charge out to other departments, that's been paid for, so it goes down now. And then a slight increase coming in from IT. Bottom line number, 247,000 to 253,000. Warehouse. So slight compensation decrease, very slight. Benefits up a little bit. Our supplies increase is due to the weather gear, the PPE that we buy, and just various other things. It is time to replace their pickup truck. Our scheduled charges are up for IT, property insurance, and electric. Capital is going down because we had a one-time purchase that we needed to make last year, which we did. So your bottom line is 500,000 up to 506,000. So the amount of things that they inventory and provide out there on a day-to-day basis is pretty impressive. It's a really good outfit. Okay, risk management. We've got compensation decrease because of some staffing changes and shifting one of our safety specialists over to the water department, the charge for that person. Benefits go down accordingly. We are budgeting for a new round of property appraisal services. We have to do that every few years, and that's how we go out and buy our insurance. So it also makes sure we are insuring for an appropriate replacement cost. Scheduled charges down because we have transitioned into self-insured workers' compensation. I think that came up yesterday, and that's what you've got here. Transfer to the general fund is going up slightly because of the organizational development program. It's actually in HR, but it's paid for out of here. All in, though, you have a decrease from 13.4 to 12.7 million. Okay, here is the capital for your internal services. You see the public safety radio system at 6.1 million. You see that set up as a tax note. So the radio system we have today went online in 2015. So the city looked quite a bit different then. It has 2 primary towers on it and then a couple of smaller ones that feed back into the big ones. Doing this is going to make a multi-site expansion, so we'll actually have new towers. We are also able to offset some user fees from all the partner agencies that are on our network. We looked at doing this on a 3-year cash basis, basically 1 new tower and the related stuff each year. Really talking to IT, talking to Radio Shop, talking to public safety. We really feel like we're better off getting this done, getting it all done at once. So what we've got has lasted. We've just outgrown the ability for it to cover. Vehicle replacements, all of the vehicles that are being replaced under that category, the 11.5 million, those are all either new cash or existing cash that came out of the couch cushions. And then we do have a little bit coming in on some tax notes, and you see how that divides out. Special revenue. Short version of special revenue are things like TIFs, grant-funded programs, and items like that. They all stand alone in an individual fund, and so we'll watch through them now. So within your tax increment financing zones, we'll start with the Central Business District. These are modeled out. So the column that's bracketed, that is your new budget year, and of course the column to the left is the current budget year. So for the Central Business District or the downtown TIF, current year funding sources 1.75, new year 1.77. Tax collections are up very slightly, and so are interest earnings. Coming on down, the administrative costs, postage, board insurance, all of that. You have your debt service, you have their capital project fund. The small piece of the compensation adjustment takes you to 2.68 million on expenditures. The delta there is in that transfer to the capital project fund. Comes under the line in this case by 900,000, but if you walk to the right, you will see how that comes back, balances out your revenues and expenditures. That same change appears on the first line of your reserves. So this will bring 2.3 million in reserves for the proposed year. You have a debt service restriction inside of it, pulling it down to 1.9 that's available, but watch to the right as that walks itself back up as well. Here is your downtown TIF capital improvement program. The new money is public improvements in the amount of 1.5, 1.3 million in new cash. That is not new bonds for 157,000. That's some remaining bonds from years ago. And then they wish to create a utility infrastructure grant program. So when you have, and the name has just escaped me, we have a new electrical company right over here just south of Broadway, and they were able to combine some alleys and close a street, but there had to be infrastructure moved. This would be a way to offset a portion of that for relevant operations. So out of the 1.75 total in capital, roughly 1.6 of that is their cash, and 157 is old bond money. Okay, go over to the Lubbock Business Park. This one is structured the same way. You've got total earnings in the amount of 1.08 million. Cash funded capital, 1.2 million in LEDA. I believe that same number, you're going to see it in the LEDA budget later on today. Total expenditures of 1.2. Again, the big difference here is going to be the capital. So they're about 141,000 under the line. That also quickly recovers as you move to the right. The very bottom line is their reserves. So 3.55 million in the new year, carrying out to 8.7 on the right side. And the capital project is the East Hunter Street extension. Mr. Osborne's here. If there's any questions later, he'll be able to talk to you about that. 1.1 million in new cash, 33,000 in old money. North Overton TIF. So same structure, the bracketed column in the middle is the proposed budget. Revenues of 6.6 million, offset by expenses of 4.5. So this budget's 2.1 to the good. Come down the line, you see that is growing their reserve balances. Let me comment about debt service reserve, because this will also go up into your debt service annual deal. We have 2 full years left on the conference center debt out there. So that's paying itself down. That also then frees up dollars that go into the reserves. So if you go with me back to the very bottom line, we're estimated to have 11.5 million in that reserve account at the end of the new year. The year that this is supposed to expire, or will expire, is 41.5 million. Now, once the debt service is retired, it would be a fair discussion with this board about ending the TIF sooner. You can't end it while your debt is outstanding, but after that you can. Question about the reserve funds: what happens when a TIF expires that has reserves? And this one's worked perfectly. It's been a textbook. They are distributed back to the taxing entities at the same ratio that their tax levy is to the total. So you've got City of Lubbock, Lubbock County, the hospital, and the groundwater district are the 4 participating districts. Make sense? Okay. So North Overton's capital program, your general public improvements for 750, and then the ongoing street upgrades and replacements at $1.5 million. Again, this is all cash. I think they may only have 1 more year on the street upgrade program after this, and they've got all that big work done. You ready for community development? Okay. This will go on for a couple of pages here. The community development program for the city does not have general fund money. Karen Murphy and her team exist off of the various grants that come into the benefit of our community. So the top one is the community development block grant. The budget for the current year is right at 2.2 million, and then on the far right, the new budget, 2.215. So the CDBG block grant, which for years has been the mainstay of this, it's really just wiggling right there at that 2.2. You have your expenditures that go underneath it, and in the fund level, those total to 1.098 or 1.1. Then you've got your various expenditure categories coming in just slightly under the revenue on this one. Go to the next page. There are 2 grant programs here. You have the Home Investment Partnership Program, or the HOME grant. This one we thought was starting to come back up. It's really not. It seems to be centered there right about $1 million. There is a bit of program income here. The reason program income has gone down over the last few years, we spent quite a bit of it, and that was related to that major demolition program or project over in District 1 that some of y'all were here when we did that. Expenditures, $983,000 for affordable housing development, 10% for the administrative load on this one, balanced budget at $1.081 million. The next one is the Emergency Solutions Grant, or ESG. The entitlement portion of that is small. There is no more COVID funding that goes in that. So this one all goes for homeless housing and services, minus a 7.5% for the administration thereof. The next, you'll hear us sometimes use the word CAP, which is Comprehensive Energy Assistance Program. This is providing bill assistance for people with their essential utilities. This one also has centered up right there around $2 million and probably is going to stay. This one had ARPA money. It was not the same general money that the city had. It was unique to CAP. That's all been worked out of it. You see where we are now. So in the middle, you've got the department expenditures, $131,000. So out of that $2 million, Karen and her team provide all the administrative for $131,000 and provide nearly $1.87 back to people that are in need. Okay. You've got some miscellaneous other funding sources. We've got some older carryover money that's actually worked its way out. Move over to the right on the last section. This is the total of those various grants that are in there and getting you to 5.9 million, or 5.5 million. Okay. Ready for economic development? Okay. This first one, this is a bit of the catch-all where we run everything into it and then it goes out into different sources. So the compensation and the benefits, that's a portion of the 2 total FTEs that we have in the city's business development department. So that's Ms. Brown and her team. They do a great amount of work. That is covered in here. Other than that, what you're really going to see are transfers. So come with me almost to the bottom, and you see transfer to transit at $400,000. So it's not an offset. You're still paying out of the general fund, but you would be paying a little more than that. Saying this is not general fund is a little bit disingenuous. This is still all your maintenance and operations property tax money. When you hear us talking about the M&O levy and all that, that's what is funding the totality of this. $400,000 of it goes over to transit. That has been a flat number for many, many years. And then you have the Market Lubbock transfer. So current year, the transfer to Market Lubbock out of this source was $3.505 million. We have pulled that down a little bit to $3.106 million. Collectively, you've got 3.739 in funding, 3.739 in expenditures. All in, this is a 9% reduction. So this group took the same hit that all the other general fund departments took. It's the same funding source.
Just one question or one comment on it. So the property tax line is empty for this year, whereas carried the money before, and now we put the money down in the general fund because we've changed how we transfer
That's
that money.
correct, Mayor. At the end of the budget, 2 budgets ago, now coming on 2 budgets ago, the council uncoupled it from a rate. We left it where it was last year. There's no change in how they're getting their monies. It's just that this is now a transfer from the general fund rather than showing up on property tax. One of the reasons we did that is internally, in the past, we've had to calculate 3 different tax rates when statutorily only 2 exist. So we're squaring all that up as well. The there'll be more details on the uses of those funds. You've seen City Bus, but you'll see more on the Market Lubbock money here in a little bit.
Mr. Collins.
And so when Market Lubbock was initiated, was it based on a percentage of property tax?
I have been told it was based on a flat number of pennies. We have not found it, but we've been told that.
How long ago was that?
I'm going to guess very early 2000s.
Okay, but it started as a flat number of pennies per 100.
That is what we've been told, yes.
Okay, and it's evolved to the point where we don't do it that way. Do we have any projection about where that number might have been had we left those pennies alone?
Current year, a penny is of roughly 2.4 million.
Okay, and so if we imagined that's somewhere in a document, that was 3 pennies, if I recall, and so that would put us somewhere around 6.8.
I'm going to cheat because I did math in public last year. And
I do not, thank you. If you
I did,
recall.
and I got popped.
Yeah.
3 pennies at the current value would be about 7.2.
See, I don't do math in public, but about 7.2. So over the course of this transition, we've seen this number decline by approximately 50%. Is that a fair?
It wouldn't be, yeah. It would
Projected
have grown to that revenue, but when they had first initiated the transfer to City Bus, that came out of whatever number of pennies were being assigned. And then when we created internally the business development group, that was part of what we worked out with Market Lubbock and Lita, that we were going to cover that. And then again, there's not a direct, it's so many pennies at this point.
Okay.
I want to say 2012 is when the City Bus transfers started. Somewhere right in there. I believe Mayor Robertson's.
Yes, I think that I think everything was left alone fairly well up until 2012, and then changes started to be made. So, okay, that's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's do Gateway Streets. Enlarge that a little bit. So current year budget is 9.3 million. Gateway has 2 sources of revenue, a portion of the franchise fees collected by the city, and then whatever interest is earned. New year budget is 9.008. That is because the franchise fees are down. You saw that in the general fund when we looked at the top lines on the revenue. That obviously affects them the same. You will also note that we've got very, very slight increases from this 8.58 as we go out in the future. Again, those will get truthed out every summer because we don't know. Coming down, your largest expense inside of Gateway is 7.6 million for debt service. You see how that stays flat for 2 more years and then begins to come down somewhat rapidly. That tax note payment was a short-term note that was taken out on a road project a couple of years ago rather than doing it as a 20-year bond. There just wasn't. It's not logical to have done as small as we did on 20 years. So that's what the tax note is. You see the $500,000 that goes to increase your street maintenance for inside the loop, leaving you with a total expenditure of 9.15. And we're slightly under the line here at 139,864 expense greater than revenue. We're back up in the following year, fiscal year 27. You see that bigger number that comes in as a negative for fiscal year 28. The reason being, we think that is when this fund can carry its next street project. And recall that when Gateway was originally built, number one, it was very, very innovative. It was not done anywhere else in the state that I'm aware of. In fact, I watched it jealously from afar. Gateway was built entirely as a debt service fund. It really was. We've been able to come in, council several years ago changed the Gateway's guidance documents so that we could use some of it for street maintenance. if we were able eventually to build enough cash, you could fund a project. I think it's really going to be additional maintenance inside the loop through the future, as well as every few years, and by every few years, it seems about every 5, you'll be able to pick up one more street project for Gateway. So go down and look at their reserves or their fund balance. So we are slightly upside down on expense versus the revenue. But you see that the fund balance today is, or for next year, it starts at 12.1 million. The reserve requirement here, I believe, is 75% of annual debt service. So that's the 5.6, leaving 6.5. And then again, you see how that rises out into the future.
For the benefit of anybody who might be watching this and wondering about what the Gateway, how it operates, where does the revenue from the Gateway come from?
It's a portion of the franchise fees that are collected in the general fund. And I don't remember the percentage right off the top of my head. Cheryl probably does. Percentage of franchise fees that go to Gateway?
It's like 40%, so it'd be like.
What did she say?
About 40.
About 40%. Okay.
We'll verify that. That may be a little low.
Right. And most of that was used on Milwaukee
Milwaukee and the Marcia Sharp flyover were
and the
the two
Marcia
big
Sharp
ones.
Yes, the flyover. All right.
It's done several smaller ones, what I would call more normal streets since then, but that was what it was created to do, and it did it very well. Okay, Gateway Capital, same 500,000 for street maintenance inside the loop, cash. Ready to go to hotel occupancy? So, council, we ended up bringing this slide forward kind of late in the budget last year, so we put it back for this year. Don't intend to read it. Just know that under state law, there's 2 criteria you have to meet to use your hot tax money. The first one, every expense must directly enhance and promote tourism and convention and hotel industry. The second criteria, and that's the one that's got the laundry list underneath it, every expenditure of HOT must clearly fit into one of those 9 categories below. So last year, we did make some very small changes in how you distributed the hot tax. The larger change was 2 years ago. These dollars used to be sent over to your partner agencies as a percentage rather than a dollar. So if they were going to get 25% of your levy, we would still give them an estimate of how many dollars that represented, but you would pay in arrears after the close of the year. If the hot tax revenue was greater than you predicted, they got that proportionate benefit. The council stopped that, and you now actually are building a hot tax reserve fund. So now what would have been true-up dollars goes into that rather than back to your partner agencies. At any point in the future, for an eligible project, the council can allocate those dollars, including back to one of the partners if that's the best way to do it. But that was a fundamental change 2 years ago. Last year, we made some more minor changes really related kind of to the museums and such as that. So we'll walk through in detail if everybody's had a chance to read and memorize the 9-part test.
And just to make the point, because this question comes up frequently from, well, not real frequently, but every now and then people say, well, why can't you use that money for your general fund to help lower my taxes on my house? Because the law does not allow us to do that. It's restricted.
It would be illegal to do that.
Yes, it would be illegal to do that. That's the best answer for that. It has to directly do both of these things. All right, thank you.
Okay, for the fund as a whole, you've got current year 9.7 million in projected receipts, going up slightly to 10.077 in the following year. 9.7 million basically to 10.1 million. Carry that down into your funding sources. You do see some interest earnings on top of that, leaving the hot fund for the new year at 10.1 million all in. You've got compensation and benefits. That's where we've been able to assign, under that 9-part test, some of your city expenses. Some professional services and training that supports that. And now you get into your transfers. These are what goes to your partner agencies. And we'll blow that part of it up. So we've got Civic Center operations and marketing, 2.75. You have your Convention and Tourism Bureau, more commonly known as Visit Lubbock, 3.7. You have Civic Lubbock at 596. This funds their grant program. What is called Visiting Participatory and Spectator Sports, or Lubbock Sports Alliance, comes in on here at 1.205. We have a transfer to the TIF for the conference center, that is North Overton, 452. Buddy and Maria Elena Holly Plaza debt, 86,000. That one's getting close to paying off. We have the transfer to the CIP for the Civic Center. You'll see that here in a little bit, in 150,000. We are able to transfer some of these dollars to your tournament ball fields. So that is the Tom Martin Complex and the Burl Huffman Complex. You can see we've been doing that for 3 years. We now are allocating a portion of this specifically to the Burl Huffman Complex for the eventual turf replacement on your tournament fields. That $494,000 is not programmed to be spent this year. That is to go in a capital project and build so that when we need to replace that turf, we'll be able to do so. Then you've got visitor support at 268. Comes down on a bottom line, 10.077. On the pie chart, as a percent, you can see where those dollars are going. Okay. So here's your capital.
Mr. Collins.
Appears to have a new line item, or from 24-25 of compensation and benefits. What part of our staff are we?
It's primarily in your museums.
Museum staff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. And it wasn't there before?
Correct, because we just made that last year.
And they had been paid for under what category?
Mainly they were coming out of the general fund.
Out of general fund dollars, okay. Very good, thanks.
But that was a legitimate use of that hot tax money for that. That was one of the changes we made.
Yes, sir. Mayor.
Mr. Rose.
Thanks, Mayor. You've probably already went over this, Jared, but transfer to Civic Center, it looks like it went down 60%. Transfer to CIP?
Transfer to CIP.
Uh-huh. What is that?
Well, remember, the money that's in their CIP, mainly we're holding it, except for, repairs that we need. So we didn't make the same transfer this year. We're asking for a single transfer of $150,000, and that's actually to work on your future of the Civic Center.
Okay, thank you.
We were able to make the change, I believe, 7 years ago to entirely get the Civic Center off of your general fund. And this is where those come in.
Mr. Collins again.
One last question. The monies that go to Civic Lubbock in the grants program, that's formulaic, correct? I mean, that's based on somewhat on revenue by formula.
The percentage that goes to each partner is, number one, it's entirely set by the council. It's not formulaic by law. The formulas that are written into the hot law, if I remember them correctly, they're actually caps. They're not saying you must give X, they're saying you can't go more than X percentage.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so here's your capital. 874 going into the ball field maintenance and improvement. Again, it's Huffman and Martin. and then setting up a CIP to accumulate some extra dollars for your future convention center expansion discussions. If that ends up not being needed, it goes into this reserve and can get reallocated. Well, they're non-major. That just means it doesn't take a lot of time there. In other words, they all fit in a big chart. So your non-major special revenue funds, this is the revenue side, starts at the letter A, goes to W. Note that this is going to pick up all of your PIDs, public improvement districts. They're all going to be in here. Most of them are at the bottom of the page. A couple of them are scattered around therein. Abandoned vehicle fund, that is for the benefit of the police department. You see that it is down slightly. We're trying to get some true up done in that fund. We don't think it's going to hit its 2.9 this year. And this is not a revenue that's in anybody's control. It's ultimately after a vehicle ends up seized, struck, and auctioned. You pay your expenses, and then whatever's left goes into this fund. At the Animal Assistance Program, one of your PIDs, Cable Services Fund. So work across on that one. That is what everybody used to call PEG, which was Public Entertainment or Public Education and Government. It's your TV channel. Those are funds that have to come out really of your cable providers. And yes, the number's up this year. I'll show you why here in a moment. They're continuing to go down. So we've made one big round of improvements to the audio and the visual system. We've got a lot of the back end done, second floor is done. New year, we're going to finish this. Get all of our stuff here to where it works the way it should be. Get a modern system in it. You have various grants that come in here. Again, most of them are not going to be within our control. Health rebates and insurance, that's actually a revenue that comes back to us that we can generate on the back end of the health plan. Primarily, they are pharmaceutical rebates. HOT is relisted in here. You'll notice it's the same numbers prior. Various court funds, it's just pretty much where we have all of our catch-all. I would bring you down to North and East Lubbock Neighborhood Improvement Fund. That is your oil revenues, your oil royalties. Those royalties used to be split up and go to a couple of different places. They now all go in here. Oil prices have stayed down, so we're not budgeting as much money coming in. But this money goes nowhere other than to those authorized programs. It's primarily districts 1 and 2. It bleeds a little bit into 3. Okay. The expense side. So the big one again being the Cable Services Fund at $2 million. It's not going to generate $2 million. That is coming out of its reserve and coming out here so that we can set it up and spend it. Some of the expenses look really big. You see some 124% out at Upland Crossing. That's a self-assessed group, and you will actually be doing all of the PID budgets, I believe, at the second meeting in August. Is that correct? Yes, second meeting in August. You'll see every one of those budgets. Component units. Okay. I think Mr. Osborne is still here. John, if you don't mind, we'll have you come up and walk us through the next several.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thanks for allowing us to be here today. As you all have heard, our revenue sources for our entities come directly from the city staff, and so we appreciate the city staff and how they work with us to get us that information in a nice, timely manner. It's been a good experience this year as well. So our sales tax numbers are going to be down, just like y'all's are. We do have the Lubbock Business Park TIF reimbursement of $1.2 million that you heard about in the TIF presentation earlier. We do have in the past, this past year, we did a project that was a joint city-county project that was to help do the street kind of out there west of Leprino for DFA, Dairy Farmers of America, and their facility. We don't have that revenue this year unless you just want to send us any additional revenue. We would love to have it, but that's one reason why that income was in this last year, but not in this next one. We do anticipate using some considerable net assets in this upcoming year. We won't be using quite as many net assets as we anticipated in this budget, but some of our projects are shifting. So where we thought we were going to get it done by the end of September this year, it actually has been moved to next year. And so that's one reason why that continues to remain high on that. From a compensation standpoint, we have salary adjustments budgeted at 2.5% increase. We have had to fill quite a few vacated positions over the last 6 months, and those have been at current market wages. We do have anticipated some kind of dual positions for an early part of the year. But overall, we're pleased that benefits have actually gone down, and a lot of that's because we've had our level funded health insurance plan that we put in place last year has helped us to remain real competitive there. We have in our administrative costs, we have some areas where we thought we were having professional services all the time, and in reality, they are more of a license now as opposed to professional service. And so we've taken some items that were expenses in one and moved them to the other. But for the most part, that category is up because of some additional licenses that we've been gaining to help make us a lot more efficient with some of our programs. For example, being able to pull data into one file and get it to go to all the right places, including the website, so that it can be good and accurate information and also timely. That's what some of that information is on for us. Our office-related expenses are relatively flat. Our marketing and sales are relatively flat. Our business incentives are relatively flat. We do still have some capital improvement projects that we are planning to do. We do know that Plant Agriculture Systems continues to look towards the first of the next calendar year to begin construction. And so we budgeted in this year our water line to be actually constructed. We've been doing the engineering process on it. And then also we have a lift station and force main for them that's already been engineered that we're waiting for their construction to start before we implement as well. We also have as part of the reimbursement by the TIF, one of our capital expenses is the East Hunter extension that's in the business park. It's just north of Verizon and Amazon's facilities that are on the east side of the business park. It's just a little small extension that connects the internal roads of the business park with MLK. And then we are looking long-term as well about the growth of Lubbock and how we need to find not only a business park that is not near other housing. That's been a huge concern for many communities, including Lubbock, to make sure that our business and industry can grow and not be right next door to a neighborhood. And so we've looked at kind of the far north Lubbock area. And as we've been having conversations with city staff, it's become quickly apparent that a water tower is going to be necessary to be up there to help with fire suppression. And so we know that that's a pretty significant cost standpoint for us. So one of the big things that we've planned for this upcoming year is the engineering related to that. We can't land another deal in North Lubbock until we actually have the water tower in place. And so we've been very, very careful about what projects we put up there in North Lubbock. We've got quite a few that are looking at a couple different pieces of property at the moment. And so one thing that we feel we need to move forward on is at least having the engineering done on that water tower so that we can start construction on it as soon as possible when it's time with a company kind of going in place up there. Questions on any of that one?
Mr. Collins.
Ask a couple of questions that I think I actually know the answer to. LEDA is funded by sales tax.
Yes, sir.
What is your rate?
It's 1/8 of 1%.
So 1/8 of 1%. And the available amount of sales tax provided by the state, had it been elected by the city, is how much?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
State, I guess, really, let me just make the statement. State allowed 1/2 penny for sales tax, and the city of Lubbock adopted 1/8.
That's correct. The state will allow a maximum of 1/2 of 1%, but it's also of whatever's available. And so if the city has none available, they're not allowed to do it beyond.
So we couldn't add any more today if we wanted to?
No, sir. An entity would have to, that currently collects sales tax, would have to give some up. I would love for the state to give a proportion of their 6.25%. That'd be fantastic.
Let's work on that.
So
I'm skeptical of that. But I guess the point I want to make, it's at 1/8 penny, you operate on essentially 25% of the available funds that the state would have allowed an economic development organization to have collected. You operate on 25% of the available revenue stream that our neighbors to the north collect.
And to the south and east, both. At Midland, Odessa, Amarillo, Abilene, they're all at 0.5%. Frisco's at 0.5%. The larger cities are actually, they don't collect a sales tax. It is for cities that are less than 500,000 in population, and it is meant to help even the playing field for small and rural areas to be able to compete with the urban areas that have all the infrastructure and the personnel and the available buildings. This is a pot of money that's specifically designed to be able to attract companies, provide skilled training, to be able to build infrastructure and help advocate for companies to be in our area.
Well, and so I think, you know, to commend the LEDA team, if I could, we do more with less, which is the Lubbock way, of course, but we do more with less than any of our neighboring cities relative to our size and our sales tax collections. And when you think about landing a project like Leprino or Monsanto Bear, and not having to fund the kind of infrastructure that you might have had to fund or could have funded, but still landing those projects in Lubbock, I want to tip my hat to what you guys do, the hard work and skill set that you guys bring to the table when it comes to negotiating with companies who could choose to be anywhere in the state or anywhere in the country for that matter, and choose Lubbock because of the presentation that you guys make. And so I want to say thank you for that.
Thank you.
Dr. Wilson.
Yeah, John, really quickly on the expense side, your incentive payments, that you've got $4 million, is that employee incentives or business incentives?
Business incentives.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. So on our business incentives, that would be any cash payments that we're doing for job creation incentives, capital investment grants, things of that nature that go directly to those companies.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? All right. Thank you, Mr.
Okay. Moving on to Market Lubbock. Again, our revenues come directly from the city, and as you heard, that there was a decrease in the funds that were coming to Market Lubbock, and so we are at $3.1 million roughly. We do have a utilization of new net assets, and I'll talk about that project here in just a minute. A lot of the net assets that we will be using are related to the ball fields out at the Tom Martin complex. Compensation is at the 2.5%, again, same as LEDA, and that's true across all of the different entities. The professional dues and services, we do have some subscriptions that we've allocated amongst all the three entities, and that's one reason why that's up just a little bit. Our special projects are going to be down just ever so slightly, and that's partially because in the current budget year, we've already paid $475,000 for the engineering to be done at the Tom Martin complex. And so the remaining funds that we have for that is about $2.75 million, or excuse me, $2.25 million. and that would be for the actual construction to take place. I think, and Kobe may be in the room, but I know that they're doing, our Parks and Rec director, he's been fantastic to work with. Park Hill is currently going through their engineering, and I can't remember the time frame on it, but it seems like it was early next year, January or so, maybe February, that they were going to be done with the engineering. Was it a little later than that?
It should be around November, December.
No, November, December, later this year, the engineering should be done. That would then, we would then start to look at what is the actual construction, and we would be going out for bids on that with the assistance of the City Council. And then once those bids came back and we determined what the funds could be used for, that's when those funds would then be transferred over to the city for the use of that project. So that's our big special project that we have in Market Lubbock. We continue to do our grant programs for downtown and for our commercial revitalization area, and we appreciate the council's support over this past year. Jorge tells me that we've he keeps track of all the different projects as they come through that process, and we have had some that don't qualify anymore. But we also have some that have qualified for more as a result of the type of impact that they've had. And we feel like there's beginning to get in even greater momentum in the downtown area. So we're appreciative that you all allow us to do that project, to do that grant funds. Happy to answer any questions on Market Lubbock.
Any questions? Other than the Tom Martin ball fields, what are the other special projects? Are there any other special projects?
That's the bulk of the special projects. We've got some other things that we do for our training and helping with our high demand job training efforts that are done through Market Lubbock, and some of our marketing efforts that are done through there. I don't think I've got anything else that was. Oh, it was some workforce initiatives that could come out of Market Lubbock that are utilized there for our special projects.
Okay. Mr. Collins.
John, I believe that I understand that monies from Market Lubbock can be used for economic development. Those monies can be transferred into LEDA for use on a particular project. Is there an example of that?
So so I started here in 2010, and my predecessor prior to that was transferring about $3 million a year from Market Lubbock to LEDA to help with LEDA-related projects. That was kind of originally what it was designed for, was to do what I call traditional economic development of jobs and capital investment, and trying to encourage businesses to be here. He could have technically spent them out of Market Lubbock for the same reason, but that was kind of the policy that they did back then. We did that up until maybe the mid-2010s time period, and then we kind of shut that down based on the council's request to keep more funds in Market Lubbock for more community-related projects. And then once we had won the Leprino deal, we asked the City Council if we could transfer $1 million a year for 5 years to help with our Leprino Foods project, and the council was supportive, and so we were appreciative of it. Jana, do you recall? We have one more year of that. We have 2 more years of that, and then we'll be finished with the 5 years.
Okay. One of the things that I would point out about LEDA and Market Lubbock is they're really kind of charged to be prepared to assist companies when they choose to consider Lubbock. And so while you look at projects that may require special assistance, whatever that might be, you don't know what it is until somebody knocks on your door.
Yes.
And so, the point I want to make with that is I think it's important that we recognize that having capital in Market Lubbock or in LEDA helps us respond to that company that chooses Lubbock or wants to choose Lubbock. How can we assist that company? And in my experience with LEDA, we're not paying companies to come here. We're assisting them with the problems that they need to solve. We're not buying their business. They're choosing Lubbock. And I think that can be said of Monsanto and Bayer. It certainly can be said of Loprino. They chose to come to Lubbock, and we helped them to overcome some of the challenges that they had in their relocation or their new project. And so, you know, when we look and consider, why is there money sitting here? Why are there free capital? Why are there dollars sitting in these funds? It's very important that you be able to react to whatever that project may be. Is that fair?
Yes, sir. That is, a lot of the sales tax for economic development type of organizations around the state have a fund balance, and it's so that they can move quickly at the speed of business, that they can fund infrastructure to be put in place, that they have the capital to help with any incentive programs that are necessary. And LEDA is no different, and we use Market Lubbock. We have traditionally used Market Lubbock for many of those same abilities to try to be able to win deals and get them to come to Lubbock. When we have funds that are available, we specifically don't just spend them for the sake of spending. We see that long-term, there is some significant capital needs for the development of areas for business to go into. And many of those areas and many of those needs, the city of Lubbock is not going to have the capability to assist with going forward. And that kind of then falls back on our backs to try to help in that case, to help get those areas developed and to bring in those jobs.
Well, and you made the point earlier about the water treatment, not water treatment, but the water storage facility. And you know, we get hamstrung if we don't have that facility in place or the funds to build it. And I certainly, when we talk to the city manager or others to say we had an extra $10 or $12 million to build a water tower for a project that comes to town, it doesn't exist. And so we put that burden on you guys. We have to allow some funds to be accumulated in those accounts in order to be responsive when that happens. And what we've seen in the history of LEDA and Lubbock, it's not if that happens, it is when that happens. There will be a project that comes to Lubbock and is going to need that water tower, and we're going to lean on you. So we're going to need to allow for the accumulation of some of those dollars there and understand why. And it's to be able to move at the speed of business, as you mentioned earlier.
Yes, sir.
So thank you very much.
And Dr. Wilson.
John, looking at your expense report here for Market Lubbock, I know we do the 1 mil transfer over into LEDA from Market Lubbock, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it somewhere on the expense? I don't see a line item for that transfer.
The expenses under our grant programs.
Well, I thought you said, but that was the grants for the downtown grants. So is the downtown grants paid out of LEDA or is it paid out of Market Lubbock?
The grants are paid out of Market Lubbock to LEDA. And then
But I thought you said that $1 million was our downtown grant, like facade, all that program right there. So is it for the transfer or for the grant program?
Under our business incentives and special projects, we actually have two lines that say grants. One says grants, and it's $1,075,000. That is $1 million that goes to LEDA and $75,000 that goes to the Lubbock Cultural Arts Foundation to help with that project. Then we have a grants program that's for downtown and CRGP, and that's $1.175 million. And then we have within that same whole category, we also have our special projects and business incentives. So my apologies, we'll work on renaming that. We have two grants. One is directly to LEDA, and the other one is for our downtown grants that were associated with that.
So the downtown grants for like our facade program is coming out of the special projects? That's why I'm only see one grants. Am I missing a grants line? Is it out of the special projects line? I just want to make sure I know which one it's coming out of.
So I'm looking at your screen now instead of my piece of paper, so that'll make us both talk on the same wavelength. So under the grants program, that is the $1 million to LEDA and $75,000 to the Lubbock Cultural Arts Foundation. Stacy Keith runs that operation. She does a fantastic job. Under our, and then under the, you all have listed the special projects there at 33515, but I don't see, am I missing it, Cheryl?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Is it all wrapped up into special projects, or are we missing a grant line for the facade grants?
I think what we've got is, under business incentives, I see what it is. So your your incentive payments, what that is a combination of two of my line items on my piece of paper, and that would be the business incentives of $125,000, and then our grant programs of $1.175 million, and that's for the downtown and CRGP.
Okay, so they're under incentive payments?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I was just confused. They weren't matching
That's
up. I
okay.
only saw the
Yeah.
one grant, so thank you for
My
clarifying.
apologies. I really should use your screen. I'm just so used to my piece of paper. So,
Thank you.
All right.
other questions on Market Lubbock?
Are there any other questions for Mr. Osborne? Well, and just to follow on to what Mr. Collins had said, yeah, I think that other 3/8 pennies was the citizens voted to use that for reduction in property tax. So it's not like we didn't capture that value in some way. We chose to use it differently, but the 1/8 that they get is significantly less than other cities have to work with, and they do a great job, in bringing us businesses with their work. So,
Thank you, Mayor.
any other questions? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Just for the public to understand your special projects, will you let them know? I know we have the cultural arts. Is that where we have helped also, like Burl Huffman?
So in the past, Market Lubbock has helped with the redoing of Burl Huffman. I think we finished that project in 2020. I think we started in 2019. And that's what brought those turf fields. It was 9 acres of turf with lights and all out to Burl Huffman. And then that is also the line item that we are looking to use $2.25 million out of for our assistance with the Tom Martin complex. Yes, ma'am.
Could we fund a water park, aquatic center? Just asking
So
from that.
back in the Burl Huffman days, the city was asking, they wanted to see more soccer tournaments. They wanted our locals to be able to stay here and not have to travel as much. And there was a request, could there be funds that are put together specifically for Burl Huffman? In this particular case, we've had a lot of conversations with Parks and Rec Department and city staff about the needs for additional ball fields and the condition of the current ball fields. And there's been indication to us that that's been more of the priority. We only have so many funds, and so we're happy to separate those out and to shift them around. It will dilute the abilities to actually do any one particular project to the kind of the quality that we need to do to be able to attract the tournaments that we're trying to attract. But if there's a different emphasis that we need to do, I wish we'd kind of voted on that earlier, because we're already engineering on the ball fields at the moment.
No, I know that the tournaments also bring dollars.
Yes.
So I know that that's important. What I think is also of interest to the public is because it is also supposed to support recreational opportunities for local. So that's why I was asking.
Yes, ma'am. Having as many tournaments as we can and maximizing those fields brings a lot of economic opportunity for us. Not only is it just rent to the city from a park standpoint, but probably even far greater is the fact that they eat out, they spend the night at our hotels, they shop, many of them forget things and they want to go buy stuff, or they just want to go to the movies during their downtime.
Thank you.
And I might just add again, just back to the 1/8%. A lot of help, assistance comes to LEDA from our own staff. It's not a line item in our budget, so to speak, but I know our staff do work very hard with you and contribute a lot of time and effort. So there is actually more effort that goes into it than actually just shows up in your budget when it comes to what goes into getting these businesses and everything.
Absolutely. That's a great point, Mayor. The city staff is invaluable to us when we're working on projects. We work very hard to not just waste their time, but oftentimes there's questions that need to be addressed and answered that only city staff knows the answers to. And thankfully, not only does our city manager, but also our business development department in Brianna helps to coordinate all of those efforts to make sure that we get the right people at these these meetings. It's one reason why we win the deals like Leprino. They see the joint effort that everybody has and the working together. It makes a big difference.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Osborne.
Okay, talking through Visit Lubbock, and if I'm not mistaken, you have probably 2 slides, Visit Lubbock, and if you slide one more for me, Joe, you also have the Lubbock Sports Authority. And so way back when, those 2 were separate entities, and at some point, the powers that be decided that they needed to put them underneath Market Lubbock as a DBA. And from that point on, or they wondered at that point, would this actually work? And so they've constantly funded it separately, but in reality, we treat it kind of all as the same. And so when I'm talking about Visit Lubbock, most of the time, I'm actually talking about all of Visit Lubbock and also the Lubbock Sports Authority. And then there's some times when I'm only talking about the Lubbock Sports Authority because I'm talking to a tournament organizer that really doesn't necessarily understand the point of Visit Lubbock. And so at that point, I'm only branding it as Lubbock Sports Authority. So we have a combination of those 2, and what our information is, the hot money, the hotel occupancy tax dollars that are come to us at the, or told to us at what the city has mentioned to us, and that level has remained level for a number of years, continues to remain level for us. Our compensation, merit-based salary adjustments are up to 2.5%, like we've mentioned before. We did have some professional dues and licensing that we've added to it, but some professional services that have come down because of how we've reclassified some things. We did end up giving back some rent space that we had. And when we did, we split, Gary Lawrence back in the day had set it up to where Visit Lubbock paid for this and Lita paid for that. And in reality, now we're just taking the whole space and just splitting it down the middle. So there's just a little extra rent there. And then we've got probably the biggest aspect of all the change for us amongst our sports sales and marketing and sports servicing. We've got a huge number of sporting events that we're anticipating this upcoming year, and we're very, very excited about it. But the big number that's in our budget this year is a tourism capital improvement project of just shy of $5 million. It is related to the Tom Martin Complex. So it's not just coming out of Market Lubbock, it is also coming out of our tourism dollars. And as our city manager mentioned, there's a 2-part test for those expenditures to be able to be done. And the Tom Martin Complex does count in what those expenditures can go for in terms of improvements. It does put a little bit of onus on the city to monitor and make sure that we continue to host tournaments that bring in hotel nights so that we get that paid back over time as a community. But in the whole scheme of things, it ends up being just shy of $5 million for that project from Visit Lubbock.
Mr. Harris.
Yes, Mr. Osborne. Myself and citizens wants to know when or are you ever going to attempt to develop hotels and restaurants by the airport?
So we work very closely with developers for both hotels, restaurants, could be apartments, could be even housing. We get a lot of requests from developers for just information about what's going on in the community. We saw a huge uptick in the total number of hotels in our community from 2014 to 2019, and yet our occupancy rates didn't fall at all. So it showed that there was a need for it and demand for it. Around I think it was around 2018, there started to be a lot of buzz around the potential for an airport hotel. I think they had a couple starts and sputters with a couple different developers that were considering being out there by the airport, and ultimately then COVID hit. And once COVID hit, it's kind of changed the tourism world just a little bit. It's taken it a little bit longer for a lot of the hotels to be able to kind of come back and be at the occupancy levels that they needed to be at, and also the staffing levels that they needed to be at. Our airport director, we work very closely with when she comes across opportunities for developments to be out there, whether it's a hotel or I don't know that we've ever looked at a restaurant on the airport property other than inside the building. But the hotels themselves, she's always quick to give us a call, and so that we can come over and be a part of those conversations. I think that as we continue to see North Lubbock developed, and as we see the city continue to grow, our county is expected to be at 500,000 in population between now and 2060. We're going to see more and more demands for hotels and restaurants along the interstate, including north of our community and especially around the airport.
All right, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
And I know for a fact, you recently met with someone that is actually looking at a hotel in that area and some business development on MLK, so.
Oh, good, wonderful. And if our office hasn't met with them, we're happy to do so in a confidential manner. We've got a lot of statistical information that would be very helpful to developers as they're looking at the marketplace for what the opportunity is.
And we did mention that. The thing is that, during COVID, there was probably a lot more energy. But one thing that we found from looking at some of the paperwork, it was still reflective of COVID period. So hopefully they'll make some updates, and that'll be a positive for that area.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Collins.
John, you might point out the limitations of economic development money and their usage, that they can't be used to incentivize the development of retail restaurant spaces or hotel spaces.
Yeah, so that's one of their challenges with each of our three entities is that with LEDA, I'm not allowed to actually incentivize a hotel developer or a restaurant by state law. And so in Visit Lubbock, I am very careful because it's limited dollars to be able to try to encourage the developments to take place. There are some rules and regulations, and we saw that allow for development to take place, and we saw that with the North Overton, or with the Overton in the North Overton area, with the development of that meeting space that's being paid through hot taxes. But the funds that come to us, we really don't use those to incentivize companies. We're doing that more to try to encourage more and more visitors, because the more and more visitors we have, the more incentivized companies are to operate a business here, such as a hotel or a restaurant. Any other questions I can answer for you?
I see none.
Okay, John, I think we've got 2 more slides
We've
for
got
you.
Civic Lubbock.
So on the Lubbock Sports Authority, I really combine all of that with our conversation on the Visit Lubbock side.
Where'd they go?
Oh, yes, okay. Yeah, so in talking with Jarrett, he mentioned that you all like to see kind of where we stand from a employment side of things, and obviously the way that we have tried to be is that, given our limited number of dollars that we do have, is to be as efficient with those as possible. So we take our management team and our marketing team, and we allocate those amongst all the entities. Technically, I am an employee of LEDA, but my salary is allocated amongst the other entities. And we have other people that are an actual employee of Visit Lubbock, and theirs may or may not be allocated to other entities, depending on if they're in the marketing or management departments. So this slide here shows you, going back to 21-22, how many total employees our entities employ and what our vacancy rate was for all of our full-time employment. Happy to answer any questions on that.
Did you do a presentation on Civic Lubbock, or is someone else going to do that?
I think they had a slide.
Mayor, I believe I have a slide out of order. This reserve sheet is John's last slide, then we'll jump back and grab Civic Lubbock. My apologies.
So then also at the request of the city manager, we've put together for you where we are from a cash standpoint in each of our entities. And so you'll see LEDA, Market Lubbock, and Visit Lubbock. And then because you all are used to seeing the CVB and Lubbock Sports separated, Jana has included those two separated out below. So the two at the very bottom, if you were to add those up, they equal what is in Visit Lubbock, if that makes sense. So our available cash as of 9/30/24 is the audited number that came back for our entities. What we anticipate our net change in excess revenues to take place in this fiscal year is in your next column. Our policy level reserves, and then you see on the far right what the policy level is for each of our entities. And so one example that I would like to give here is that it's not 6 months of budget, it is 6 months of operations. We don't include all the capital improvement projects and incentive payments and things like that into our policy level reserves, because we feel like that's not good use of our funds. It's more about the operations of things. Then you have what would be our year-end fiscal year 25 forecasted excess reserves, giving us then what, in that next column, what we plan to spend, and those, the change in excess reserves are use of net fund, the use of net assets, and then giving us what our total at the end of fiscal year 26 reserves would look like. For LEDA, that leaves us about just shy of $11 million. To put that in perspective, if we had to do the water tower today, it's an $11 million project minimum. And so that one project would use the remaining available funds that we have in excess of reserves. In Market Lubbock, it actually takes us below our 6 months policy to 5 months in reserves. Same with Visit Lubbock, and that's because we wanted to remain intact the funds that would be going for the ball fields in an effort to try. We're hopeful those construction documents, when they come in, the bids, when they come in, that they come in lower than anticipated, so we can do that project to the best of our ability. But hopefully that gives you a better idea of where we stand from a financial perspective going forward.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Osborne. Okay, Mr. Atkinson.
Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, Council, we'll jump back to Civic Lubbock. My apologies getting those out of order. I know we have Ms. Key here, and I believe possibly some of her board. Civic Lubbock, on the left at the top, you have the revenue. On the right, you have expense. So current year, 2.034 million. New year, 2.085. You come down into the sources of those dollars. Civic Center concessions, select a seat operations, and that's a tremendous program. Certain grant special projects, and then other income, and you see how that brings your total back up. On the expense side, very flat on their compensations, down on benefits and supplies. Maintenance up a little bit. Other charges slightly up, same with grants and special events. Capital outlay and reimbursements pretty flat. And then the cost of goods sold, which of course contributes to their revenue. So balanced budget at 2.084 million.
Any questions? Mr. Glasheen. Mr. Glasheen.
No, it's me.
Oh, you're green. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem.
I just want to thank Civic Lubbock for helping us get that 4th of July event happening, because it was a lot of work in 4.5 months, and y'all really stepped up, so thank you.
Any other questions? I'm not saying everybody wants to get out of here, but maybe everybody wants to get out of here. When we have but we do have a follow-up. We have something we want to follow up with here. But thank you for all this presentation. Thank you for everybody being here today. So, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to run through kind of a quick list to wrap us up, some changes that have occurred since we actually left this room yesterday. Let me do the simple parts of it first. At each of your places, you have a small handout, and my apologies, this also got left out yesterday. These are proposed fee changes inside of Culture and Recreation. I'm not going to run through them for the moment, but please look at those and get with myself or the staff, and we'll answer any questions you may have. To follow back up, Mayor, Gateway is 40% of franchise fee transfers, so we've got that. Had a question yesterday about, we've got street maintenance, but then we have that ongoing fighting the potholes all across town. So you have a one-page document there at your seat that talks about the potholes. Just note that for the current year, that's year to date, and there's still 2 months left to go in the year. That'll tell you both by numbers and by area where aerial coverage of where we're doing the potholes. We will be back together at your regular meeting next Tuesday, August the 12th. We can be back tomorrow if you would like, but August the 12th. Budget will be posted as a work session item on every council agenda from here until we get to where the budget is finally adopted. So we have plenty of chance to keep going. Now let me tell you the one that hit us yesterday. So we talked about how I get a preliminary value for taxes, then I get a certified value of taxes. Those, of course, are prepared by the Lubbock Central Appraisal District. Remember, the city has no input to any of that, and that's by state law. It's a good system. The second thing that comes to us, that has to come to us from the appraisal district, and this is true no matter what city you're in, the appraisal district will be different, and that is a quite lengthy series of calculations that ultimately results in what we call the no new revenue rate and then the voter approval rate. So we got that yesterday, came in about 5:30. That's timely. Tim's team is doing well on it. But we have some issues with what's in that worksheet. So I'm going to, number one, I hope, a lot of this is going to change. I'm going to use round numbers to just kind of set where we're standing right now. The way that series of calculations works, and I think Joe's got a copy of that worksheet up here with him. I believe it's 5 or 6 pages long. That program goes in and does a mathematical calculation that what it does is it resets what your prior year levy is. So what I mean by that, when the council ultimately adopts a budget, you're adopting a tax rate. That tax rate is applied to your values, and that results in revenue. Part of it goes to maintenance and operations, part of it goes to interest and sinking. But when you set that levy, you set a rate against a value that resulted in $1. Okay? Every year, as long as we've been doing property taxes. With this program that gives us back the numbers we use for the new year, this year, that program reset or recalculated this year's levy, not the new year's levy, this year's levy. What that did for your maintenance and operations, and this is without the value of frozen levy, this is just the base before we get into anything else. It dropped last year's levy by $2 million, from 83 million to 81. Then it applies all the math keeps going forwards. And what it means, if this ends up being right, and I'll tell you what we're doing about it, it would mean that in essence, the first $2 million of new revenue is just getting you to zero. So that it's a fundamental change to where we were. So what we're doing about it, a group of us was up here last night working on it. Mr. Radloff with the appraisal district came over early this morning, and a lot of thanks to him. He sat with us for nearly 3 hours, working our way through it. Mr. Radloff is going to the tax attorney group, Purdue Brandon. They're going to start working on it. LCAD's never seen it happen this way. I have never seen it happen this way. I've never heard of it this way. But the short version, if you adopt a no new revenue tax rate this year, you'll have $2 million less than you did year before. You get the 1.5 off a new, so you're 500,000 in the hole. Couple of things to just keep in mind, and again, I hope we're able to get all of these to change. Values year over year are flat. Out of $27 billion, the change is 27 million. Now, where those values are has moved, but the actual values year over year, statistically, they are flat, which means all of your numbers should be flat. If values go down, your rates go up. If values go up, your rates go down. That's how it zeroes everything back out. Last year, when we sat here and talked about this, your no new revenue tax rate was 46.6749 cents. As this series of calculations reset our base levy, your new no new revenue rate is 46.1938. It's more than a half a cent lower. So that's a challenge. That number was derived because of that change to the levy. Let me give you one more. Your current rate this year, where we sit, is 47.012 cents. The calculated voter approval rate, so this should be no new revenue, dollar to dollar, plus 3.5, is 47.1053. That is a 9/100th of a penny change from where you stand today to voter approval rate. So something's going on that none of us have run into. I think it was important to let you know this is not the final answer. We're going to really kind of hope that Joe and Cheryl got called out to go meet with them today, but maybe we'll do that tomorrow. Just know we're working our way through it. Mr. Radloff has been right on top of it, trying to help it. I will keep you informed. We do have a scheduled action on the 12th, on next Tuesday. That is to propose, not to set, but to propose a maximum tax rate. So if we have better answers before then, we'll work on it. If not, we'll be back in front of you on the 12th to do that. This is, I don't know how to describe it. I've never seen anything like this. Your calculated numbers versus your worksheet numbers are usually within tenths of a % on the total, and they are not.
All right, well, this is just the year for seeing things we haven't seen before. So
This year's insult on top of injury, I think.
Yes, let's just hope it's a glitch in the system somewhere, but work on it and get us back the information we need. But I think we all know it's going to be a challenging budget year regardless, and we appreciate all your hard work on it. So thank you again, everybody, for being here. And with that,
Mayor, do y'all want to come back tomorrow, or do you want us to cancel? We can come back and take comments, input. We can hold that till next Tuesday.
I think we should.
Come back tomorrow? Or Tuesday? I don't have anything.
You don't have any, does anybody have any questions they want to follow up with tomorrow? Or are you willing to wait till next Tuesday?
Wait till Tuesday.
Yeah, that's the only thing. If we don't have any new information tomorrow, I don't see why we would.
So how about we cancel tomorrow? We leave Thursday posted.
Okay.
And then as quick as I know yes or no, we will let y'all know whether you need to be here or not on Thursday.
Is everybody okay with that? All right, make plans to be back on Thursday then. Thank you.
And then my staff, we're all available for just any individual questions that you may have. Thank you.